Good morning, Chair Sandhu and esteemed members of the Finance and Economic Affairs Committee. My name is Andy Manahan. I'm the Executive Director of the RCCAO, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to provide you with some insight into how the infrastructure sector has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Residential and Civil Construction Alliance of Ontario is comprised of key labor and management stakeholders in our sector. It was formed to address the challenges affecting the delivery of projects such as procurement and approval processes. And in fact, our very first report provided advice to the provincial government on establishment of the public-private partnership program through Infrastructure Ontario. We work together with government and industry experts to offer realistic solutions to problems in the areas of infrastructure delivery, and this includes resilient infrastructure, growth planning, regulatory reform, and skilled labor issues. Since our inception in 2005, the importance of investing in public works, from transit and water systems to roads and bridges, and doing so smartly and efficiently for taxpayers and daily users of infrastructure, has been a primary goal of ours. Although we are focused on provincial matters, we have been lobbying Ottawa for more infrastructure funds, and in fact, last week we submitted a pre-budget submission to the federal government. Infrastructure lays the foundation for building a prosperous and inclusive nation and province, as well as providing significant opportunity for economic growth, competitiveness, and fostering strong communities across Ontario. The role of infrastructure has never been more important than it is now, and as Ontario seeks to recover from the effects of COVID, strategic investments in infrastructure provides one of the best ways to achieve that goal. Certainly, we recognize that we are in a revenue-constrained environment, so we must make smart investments, and they have to be cost-effective as well. Research has demonstrated that the impact of infrastructure spending on job creation is significant. For every $1 billion in infrastructure spending, 16,700 new jobs are generated each year. Increased investment in infrastructure also spreads throughout the economy via a series of multiplier effects. For every $1 billion in infrastructure spending, GDP is boosted by $1.14 billion. And actually, in the transportation sector, the multipliers are even higher than that. So we can help the economy overall by lowering business costs by putting in place productivity-enhancing infrastructure. Since the start of the pandemic, the construction sector has been a leader in the province. For the most part, construction is deemed to be an essential activity, and we are grateful for this designation. Those who are responsible for achieving high health and safety standards take this role seriously. Our industry has taken the necessary steps to address COVID in the workplace. We recognize that municipalities have been hard hit by the pandemic, and this has had a ripple effect on at least parts of the construction sector. Municipalities, as you all know, have faced tremendous fiscal challenges because of the pandemic, and this has had a negative impact on infrastructure projects. The most recent announcement earlier this week on Monday by Ottawa and Queen's Park to support municipalities and transit systems is recognition of the unprecedented cash crunch that local governments are experiencing. Unfortunately, the municipal sector had already been slowing down before this announcement and had not been proceeding with priority infrastructure projects that were planned for 2020. Surveys conducted by our members indicate that the pipeline of municipal projects for the fall season have dropped off significantly, with some construction firms signaling that the situation for the remainder of the year looks bleak. The lack of municipal tenders is a very concerning sign for the industry, as it indicates a drop in construction activity for state of good repair infrastructure projects. Although we applaud the recent $19 billion assistance through the Safe Restart Agreement, which includes the $4 billion for Ontario municipalities, there should be a sustained focus on assisting municipalities as the pandemic ensues. We too are counting on the federal government to bring forward a broader stimulus package, hopefully in September. In early June, RCCAO commissioned an evaluation of infrastructure investment by well-respected analytics firm Kansea. The report confirmed that municipal governments are facing the prospect of massive operating deficits due to the heightened need for services and a simultaneous drop in revenue. Combined with a significant expected decline in GDP, this could put Ontario's infrastructure investments at risk, which will have long-term implications for growth even after COVID threat has passed. The report recommends that governments focus on strategic investments in state of good repair projects that will keep jobs and growth on track and our municipalities afloat. Failure to address municipal deficits and maintain infrastructure spending would have devastating economic consequences across Ontario. Specifically, the report recommends that the federal and Ontario governments invest in infrastructure at pre-COVID levels and that the federal government cover the majority of municipal operating deficits. Under this scenario, Ontario would gain 61,000 jobs on average per year over the next 10 years, and the federal and provincial governments would receive $9 billion and $13 billion, respectively, in revenues. Research shows that in times of a challenging recovery, such as the one we are experiencing, it is critical for the construction sector to be working as efficiently as possible and look for ways to streamline the approvals process. We are thus greatly encouraged by several pieces of legislation that the government has recently introduced and passed. The COVID Economic Recovery Act ushered in changes that were necessary to expedite building approvals and cut unnecessary red tape. One specific area of positive change in Bill 197 pertains to the modernization of Ontario's environmental assessment system. For us specifically, that revolves around the municipal Class EA process. Our partners in the municipal sector have said that the goal is to improve the process but not to change outcomes. The proposed amendments mean that the same project will be built, whether it's a bridge, a bike lane, or a sewage treatment facility, with the same environmental oversight, but it will be constructed faster and with lower costs for taxpayers. We are also pleased to see that the Building Transit Fast Track will allow for early works which will help to deliver transformative projects such as the Ontario Line more efficiently and quickly compared to the previous timelines for many projects. For example, relocating utilities in advance of certain EA work will help to speed up the process. I did want to mention that many of our contractor members are experiencing difficulties with the One Call Act, which was enacted in 2012. And even though there's a legislative requirement for 5 business days to get markings on projects where the underground utilities are, and we're finding that hundreds of projects are taking weeks to get those markings. So if there's another area to speed up the process, we would recommend that that would be a serious area for the government to look at. So I know I'm running out of time, and
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off. Your time has come up now.